Hello and welcome to Union Street Arts Cooks. But today we're baking. Completely different skill set. Cooking is controlled burning and baking is a chemical reaction upon the application of moisture and or heat. So two different skill sets, but there's no reason why you can't be proficient in both. Today we are making a butter cake with a dark chocolate buttercream frosting. So here's our mise en place ready to go. We have 2 sticks of room temperature butter. We have 1 3/4 cups of granulated sugar with a tablespoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. 1 1/4 cup of whole milk, 3 cups of cake flour, and 4 large eggs. And you see that brown stuff floating around there? That is a teaspoon of vanilla. So to start, we're just going to dump our butter right in the pan. Take our mixer and we're just going to kind of cream that just a little. Kind of get it going. We're going to add our sugar. Maybe not all at once, about half. To kind of get the butter going. Take our spatula here, kind of knock that down on the side. And we'll go ahead and add the rest of our sugar. Okay, so we've continued to cream this for a couple of minutes anywhere until it gets to the consistency that you see here. The butter and the sugar are completely incorporated with one another. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to add the flour and the milk alternately. So about 3 times. So you're going to add about a cup of the cake flour until that's pretty well incorporated. Then you're going to add 1/3 of the milk. And you might have to turn your mixer down just a little on this one because it does get kind of sloppy. Maybe not. Until that is fully incorporated, and then you're going to add 1/3 more of the flour. And you can see now it's really starting to look like a batter. So we can give it a little more speed. And we're going to add the rest of the milk. Turn that down a little. Okay, there's the rest of the milk in. And then we're going to add the rest of the flour. Until it's completely incorporated. And if you make a little mess with the flour, that's okay too. Let's scrape our sides down. We're listening to some Afro-Cuban jazz today. So once you've got the batter pretty much mixed, now you're going to start adding your eggs about one at a time until they're incorporated. And there goes the last egg. And then we're just going to turn this up just a little to make sure we get everything good and beat in. You don't want to beat it too much and too hard, or you'll incorporate too much air in the batter, and that's what causes your batter to rise and then fall in the kitchen. So we don't want to do that. So just until we get a good incorporation, and that looks about right. So here is the cake batter. Just kind of go around the side just to incorporate that last little bit. And we're ready for the pans. We've got our oven preset at 350. Seems like everything bakes at 350. So we're using 3 pans today. I've already cut out the parchment paper linings. Now I'm going to use the eyeball method of filling these. However, you can, if you want to measure, you add up your ingredients. So you had 3 cups of flour, 2 sticks of butter, a cup and a quarter of milk, a cup and 3/4 of sugar. So you've got about 7.5 to 8 cups of volume now. So if you wanted to take a measuring cup and measure out each one, you can. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. And we'll probably have to make 1 or 2 passes because I'm not that good at eyeballing it. And there we have it. And when they come out, we'll see how close I was. This is a fairly liquid batter, so it's going to spread out in the pan pretty easily. You don't have to mess with it too terribly much once it's in the pan. There we go. Again, so these are ready to go into the oven at 350 degrees. We'll check them actually at about 20 minutes because they are going to make a fairly thin layer. So the cakes are in the oven. We might as well go ahead and start with the dark chocolate buttercream. So while the cakes are cooking in the oven, not the office, we're going to go ahead and start melting our chocolate. This is 7 ounces of dark 85% cocoa chocolate with about a 1/4 cup of whole milk and about a teaspoon of vanilla. If you're cooking on an electric stove, when you've got the oven on, if you feel one of these burners will be hot when your oven is on. And because that is part of the vent system in the oven. So on this particular stove, this burner right here is too hot to actually touch. The other ones are just warm. So in a heat-proof bowl, just go ahead, and you don't have to put in a double boiler. You don't have to microwave anything. Just let it sit there. Keep an eye on it. Stir it occasionally. And let the electricity that you're already paying for in the oven do the work for you. So this has been on the whole time that the cakes have been in the oven. And I've periodically added a little more milk to it as it melts down. So altogether, you're probably going to use about a half a cup of milk in this. And as you can see, it's very, very close to being finished. It's almost completely melted, and what hasn't melted is soft. So you could probably go ahead and take this off of the heat, but we're just going to go ahead and leave it there and keep it nice and warm and pliable. But now it's time to check the cakes. So about halfway through, I moved the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. And they're pulling away from the side. And I've checked them with a toothpick, and they are ready to come out. So I'm going to put them on the cooling rack here on top of the stove. Go ahead and turn that stove off. And so we're just going to let those set until they cool. And then once they cool, we'll finish making the buttercream and get it on the cake. Okay, so the cakes are out of the oven and cooling, so we might as well go ahead and start making the buttercream. Our mise en place for this is 2 sticks of butter. We're starting with about 2 cups of powdered sugar. We may add more, depending on if we get the right consistency with 2 or not. And then this is our chocolate. Again, 7 ounces of chocolate, a teaspoon of vanilla, and about a half a cup of whole milk. You can see that looks a little grainy. That's because it is the dark chocolate with 85% cocoa powder or cocoa butter. I assure you it will blend perfectly with the butter, and it will make a nice smooth buttercream. So we're going to start with our 2 sticks of room temperature butter. And you can see it's good and soft, maybe a little too soft, so we'll have to keep an eye on that when we put the chocolate and the rest of the powdered sugar in there. So it's crawled up all the paddles, but it is soft. So we're just going to start adding our powdered sugar. And trying not to get it everywhere. But, you know, things happen. This is an American buttercream, meaning it's not cooked in any way, and it doesn't have any egg whites in it. It is basically butter and sugar and whatever flavoring you would like to add. And I would have to clean that off with my spatula. It wants to get in there. It is not wanting to cooperate. Go ahead and put our chocolate in there. Got that nice incorporated. We'll add the rest of it. You can just as easily use milk chocolate with this. It does not give it a very dark color. But that, again, is a preference just among how chocolate eaters are. Some like it dark, some like it milk. Okay, so there we've got the buttercream all blended and nice and luscious and chocolatey looking. But I think the chocolate might have been a little warm when I put it in there. So we are going to add just a little more powdered sugar, but not a whole lot. So we are going to add just a little more. Oh, maybe just about a half a cup and go from there. So that would be 2.5 cups total with the 2 sticks of butter. It still looks a little soft, but as you can see, it's almost holding a peak, or a soft peak. So I think what we'll do, we won't add any more powdered sugar, but we'll go ahead and scrape the sides down, whip it just a little more, and then give it just a minute in the refrigerator. Messy counter in a very messy bowl. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator, for about 15 minutes. That will help firm it up. We'll beat it again right before we put it on the cakes. That will give the cake plenty of time to be cool. Okay, the cakes have come out of the oven and they're cool to the touch. They're still warm. So, and they had started to pull away from the side, which is kind of what you want to see. So I've just taken a table knife and run around the edges. And then I do use cakes that have a detachable bottom, so it comes right out like that. And then that will help it to cool a lot quicker. You could obviously make this as a 2-layer cake, but then you lose 1/3 of the vehicle for frosting. And we don't want that. So there we have it. Traditional classic combination of a white butter cake with a dark chocolate frosting. The flavor combination is wonderful. You can make it into 2 layers, as I said before. It's great for a birthday cake. Any excuse to make a cake is fine. All right, so the cakes are cool enough to start handling. So I'm going to go ahead and take them off of the bases, just like that. Peel the parchment paper off. This is a no fuss way of doing layer cakes. You don't have to spray it with anything. if you bake a lot of cakes, a lot of layer cakes, I highly recommend you get pans like this. Because as you can see, it makes it very, very easy to come out. Especially if you're making a very tender cake, like a red velvet cake, this would be the perfect way to do these. So we've taken the frosting back out of the refrigerator now, and it's set up quite nice. I am going to give it just a final whip. You can see it's nice and good and stiff. And we're ready to start spreading it. So here we go with our frosting. Slowly. Next layer. Sides there. Residual heat from the cake is actually wanting to melt the buttercream icing, but we're going to put that in the refrigerator after we get it iced, and it'll be fine. There are no mistakes when you're making a cake like this. Never let them see you sweat. If you do make a little mistake, it never leaves the kitchen. Your guest will never know if something didn't quite work out the way you wanted it to. There you have it, a homemade white butter cake with chocolate frosting that any 1950s housewife would be proud of. Just took the cake out of the refrigerator where it's been resting for, oh, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes, just to kind of help completely cool the cake down and firm up the buttercream frosting. So now, our trusty knife, it is time to cut it and see what it looks like and see if it's any good. Have a plate here. And there it is. So here we have a white butter cake with a dark chocolate buttercream frosting.